Herzlich willkommen zurück auf SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard. Joining me on this Victory Monday podcast, co-host Jack. How we doing, my friend?
Doing great. Back in the saddle with you. It's been a while because we had the international break, and then, of course, some shenanigans with the broadcast last week. So it's been a bit, but we have continued our winning ways since last we spoke. And this was a particularly larger one against a top half opponent in Elversberg. So looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, it should be a really fun. It's just fun to see the results going. There was a statistics shared on the Discord about how Schalke have done against the promotion rivals, and we've gotten some insane amount of points, like 17 out of 21 points out of possible 21 points or something crazy. I forget. Someone in the chat, I'm sure, can fill us in on that. But we're doing really well at the moment. It's crazy. I mean, the top five teams, we'll say five for now. Most of them are in pretty damn good form at the moment, and so the fact that we've been forced to win our games, and we have at least against the direct rivals, it's good, but it's not. It's a far from over. I mean, we got a possible what do they call this a possible letdown game, right? With Preston Münster, last place team in the league, but it's the calm before the storm. Then you got the big game against Paderborn, 1-2, and so. Paderborn Schalke at the moment are sitting at the top, doing look really well. But how you feeling right now? Just real quick, one word answer on the top five.
Great. You said one word answer. I mean, what do you want?
Sure.
No, I mean, but look, the one thing I'll say is international break. We lost Katic and Džeko.
Yeah.
Which is bad, obviously, because that's a premier winter signing. Džeko is the reason a lot of us were optimistic for.
Yeah.
How the season's going to end, and then of course Katic is one of the primary signings under our new coach, and part of that important center back rotation. So the fact that subsequent to that we've managed to get 2 wins out of 2, and now including one against once again the promotion rival in Elversberg is better than I would have expected. So yeah, pretty happy at the moment.
I knew someone would come in the chat, and of course it was Ron. I think he's the one who brought it up in Discord. It's 17 out of 21 possible points against our direct rivals, which is insane. That's promotion numbers right there. He says we won all 4 in the first half, which is crazy. That is crazy. It is a victory Monday, as Joseph says, and he says, I don't think we'll let up against Münster. We know the goal. We have a strong collective team and great mentality. As Kenan Karaman said last week before this game, we have 6 finals to go. Well, we just went through one right now. And this game was made a little bit more difficult, but let's get to the rundown for tonight. We'll talk about the game that was Elversberg. Then we got some talking points. Last week, I made a video on the ESPN debacle, my rant. I want to hear Jack's side of the story on this one. Then we'll look at the Elversberg statement game that we just made, the statement that we are trying to say we're legit. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about Ndiaye and his red card in the second half. Could have been disastrous for us. And then our last talking point is going to be 5 finals to go. We'll get into how we're feeling with all the games remaining for all the teams coming in there, Jack. But as you kind of mentioned, 2 key figures missing last week because of the international break, picked up injuries. Nikola Katic and obviously Edin Džeko. To make matters worse, our captain, Kenan Karaman, is out. Before heading to this game, Jack, realistically, honestly, with the news that Karaman and Džeko not going to be in this game, how are you feeling headed into the game against Elversberg?
Not amazing. It's a road fixture against a tough opponent, and we're without basically our entire source of firepower for the most part.
Yeah.
And then without another member of the defense. So not optimal conditions. I think Džeko's one thing, but then you're adding Kenan Karaman on top of that, who's sort of like, if all else fails, you still have him running around out there and making stuff happen occasionally. So really requires other people to step up. And we can get into that in a minute. Yeah,
and the big question would be, well, with no Džeko, with no Karaman, no Katic, who makes it into the starting 11? Well, we would find out right away. For us, we had in goal, obviously, Loris Karius. Back 4 would slightly change here. We had Timo Becker, Hassan Kudacai, Felipe Sanchez, and Moussa Ndiaye. Midfield, slightly changed. You had El Fawzi and Schallenberg in the normal rows, Aushish in the middle or on the left, Ljubicic really on the right, I guess how they sit on the broadcast, and Christian Gomes in the middle in the 10 role, but we saw those two roles kind of interchange there. And then all led by Moussa Sylla. Thoughts on this starting 11, especially the tweaks made by Miron Muslic, considering the absences of the teams?
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's people kind of popping up in different areas on the pitch, regardless of kind of what was displayed here towards the front end of the attack. But yeah, I mean, I dig it. I mean, I think look, we've been calling for like more looks at Sanchez this season.
Yeah.
We have multiple of these guys, you know what I mean? So in situations like this where Kotic isn't available, great. Let's give him a game. That kind of a thing. Yeah, so I was fine with that. Timo Becker getting the captaincy for the first time since like the opening matches of the season. I think he was the captain for the first couple, and then hadn't had it since. So that was nice to see. And Jai has become a mainstay out there. Obviously, we can get into finally getting that Becker cameo in the second half, which we can talk about. But like, Jai has been great, and then that Schallenberg El Fayouzi has been kind of set it and forget it for quite a while now. No complaints there. And there even look, I think Gomes has continued to be probably the most underwhelming signing we've had overall. Unfortunately, just hasn't really had like a moment where he shined or really gotten anything going, but totally understand why he's included in this starting 11 given the circumstances, and the rest of it I'm completely fine with.
Didn't he score like in his first appearance for Schalke and then never scored again? But no, I feel the same way with you about the lineup. Good to see Felipe Sanchez get a nod in this one, obviously with no Ihan available as well, that limits the choices that Miron Muslic could have made. But he went with Sanchez, and I'm completely fine with that as well. We got to see cameo of Lasma as well. When you're looking at Elversberg, prior to the winter transfer window, they were probably the best team overall. I forget their striker's name that they sold away, but he was leading the league at the time, and they were really looking like a good collective team. Now this team is no slouch. They're still very much in the promotion hunt. And for me, with this team, they're not quite the same team. They're still super dangerous. And I think two players really stood out for me. Obviously, their main striker guy, Lukas Schnellenbacher, really good player. He maybe wasn't your 1A option, but he's probably a 1B or number 2 player in terms of striker for Elversberg this season. And then a guy who I'm perplexed why he is in the Zweite Liga, and that is, of course, Emmanuel Ferrari. He played with Hamburg, for several years. He looked like a player that was playing above the Zweite Liga level, and for whatever reason, he's not with Hamburg. He's not in the Bundesliga. He is in the Zweite Liga, and so it's a guy I'm going to pay attention to because he's always been a danger man in the Zweite Liga. So those are two guys, the main guys I looked at. Is anyone else that you maybe looked at Elversberg, or those are two guys you kind of had your eye on?
No, I think that's most. I think Porba has moments as well. I think you covered it.
Yeah, and so interesting game. Obviously, you play a game when you're on the road, you want to get off to a quick start. Unfortunately, we did not. 2 minutes in the game, 4 minutes in the game. It seemed like Elversberg did their homework, and they were reading Schalke and realizing that they could probably counterattack them, as a few teams have done so this year. To little glimpses here and there, especially during the early second half of the season. Well, 4 minutes in, they get this. We have the set piece. Ball goes in the box, and we literally put all our chips inside their half of the goal, their half of the field. Ball gets cleared out, and it's a lightning quick attack there by Elversberg. Ultimately, a ball gets around, but it finds a way back to Schnellenbacher, and he scores a goal. 1-0. 4 minutes in. What were your thoughts when that goal went in?
I mean, it's a disaster start, obviously. And the concern going into this game was primarily, our offense and the lack of availability of some of our preferred attacking options. And so, not that we have to not be concerned about the attack of Elversberg, they're one of the better attacking teams in the league, obviously better offensive record than we have. But I think, for me, it was more kind of like, what is our offense going to do? So to concede 4 minutes into the game wasn't great. No. And I mean, they just blew us out of the water on that one. I mean, the play started deep into their penalty area. Ball's getting kind of bounced around. And I think the issue is at one point it kind of gets cleared to the side, and a lot of Schalke players kind of follow that while a couple of their guys continue to run forward, and they end up receiving the pass in their own half. So there's no offside situation, and then they're pretty much gone. Sanchez is like, I mean, you can potentially like blame him for what happened at the end of it a little bit, but he's like the first guy to kind of get back, and he does a good job, I think, of interrupting the play and kind of blocks 2 consecutive people. And then there's just sort of an unlucky tackle and clearance of the ball that lands right back to Schellenbacher, who's kind of in space at that point because Sanchez kind of peeled off of him. So, yeah, kind of unfortunate they scored considering how we almost stopped that move, all things considered, because it looked like they were going to have a more clear-cut opportunity than they ultimately did. So, I mean, like fair play on the recovery from us, but I mean, yeah, pretty disastrous beginning.
Yeah, Moussa Sylla was actually the one who broke it up, and there was kind of shots for a penalty, but it looked like a really great tackle by him. Unfortunately, it went right to Schellenbacher, who just did a little move and boom, scored right past Karius there. So 1-0 early on, and that was my big fear going into this game. Obviously, without Džeko and Karaman, our main sources of goals, we need to keep it tight. We need to. If we walked out with this game in a draw, I would have been content considering the circumstances, right? And then go down 1-0 like we did. It's like, geez, it's not how we want to do. How are we going to get goals? I don't know where the goals are going to come from. So that had me a little worried there. And what added to that nervousness and the anxiety is like a minute later, they had another lightning quick counterattack that we luckily, I think, Kurchai snuffed out. It seemed like they were reading us very well early on in the game. Didn't help at the 7-minute mark. Ndaye picks up a yellow card for stepping on an Elversberg player's foot, which is kind of the theme with him for the day. And I mentioned that obviously for obvious reasons. Maybe 10 minutes in, they had another corner kick attempt. Kurchai had a block, made a really great play there. So it wasn't necessarily the greatest start. I thought the first 15 minutes, we really weren't unable to create any chances, but it seemed like as the half was wearing on, we were starting to stabilize that frenetic, chaotic pace that Elversberg were trying to implore. And kudos to Elversberg because they were imploring their will on us. So we just had no answers until we finally started figuring out slowly. And I felt like we were starting to get more control of the game as the half. Did you feel that as well?
No, I wouldn't necessarily disagree. The only thing I would say is I think even in those opening like 10 minutes or so, I still think there's just like so much more structure than there used to be that's evident in possession and where our positioning is and players being able to play off each other quickly and defensively as well. I thought like Timo Becker had a strong start to the game. I thought defensively in other areas. So yeah, I mean, they got the early goal. I think they got the better of us in the opening exchanges beyond that goal too, but I don't think we looked terrible. So even despite the start, I don't think it was like a disastrous performance where I was watching the screen, like, going like, holy shit. Like, like what's going on here?
We've had worse starts.
Yeah, we've had worse starts for sure.
Well, you mentioned Timo Becker. He started getting involved more in the play as the half went on. And just before the half-hour mark, we're working the ball into the box. And I forget, it might have been Lubicic or somebody, maybe Auschwitz kind of got the ball, crossed it far side where Timo Becker is pushed up, and he really kind of like volleys it back into the center area. And El Fauzi was trying to make his claim for one of the goals of the season with a ridiculous overhead kick, kind of deflects our defender, goes right into the box, 1-1. And for a guy we've been clamoring to see some goals, I think that's the only thing that's been missing from his repertoire this season. Scores a huge goal to make it 1-1 at that point. Felt good. How'd you feel after the goal? What are your thoughts on that goal?
As you said, deflected a little bit, so not the cleanest volley. Still pretty, incredible finish, obviously by him. But yeah, I thought the thing that was funny about it is I was actually like pleased with El Fauzi's play on that sequence before he even scored the goal, and I was like calling that out live while I was watching because he actually starts that entire sequence off. He gets the ball from Kurchai like in his own half, plays it, and then he does something that he did repeatedly in this game, which I think we saw it more in this game because of the personnel that was missing to some extent. But like, basically, he's immediately after he played that ball, he cuts up and basically runs and kind of like sits just kind of off of Sylla in a pretty advanced position while Lubicic is like pushed super high out to the left. And then you have Iwashish and Njaya that so like they kind of there's like an overload on the left hand side. And he kind of sitting in that pocket off of Sylla was like. They had some nice interplay at a couple different moments in the match, kind of in that exact same shape, and in kind of building up that way. But he started it off, got forward, had kind of like a no look, kind of almost like side heel or back heel back out to Lubicic, which is like what kind of got the ball in, which got to Becker, and then like you said, Becker did a nice job controlling it and just kind of putting something back into the box for someone to try to get something on. I don't think anyone expected it to end like that, but fair play to El Fauzi. Great sequence from him. great game overall. And, once again, the fact this guy was picked up from the third division is pretty incredible because he doesn't look like he's being outclassed by people when he's out there.
He doesn't. And I thought he did a good job of playing the Karaman role because Karaman usually does that with Džeko, especially the second half of the season. Kind of plays off of him, the 1-2 quick combinations, and then tries to feed people on top of the box and so the ball can get back squared into the box. So he did a really good job. Like I said, the one thing really missing from his repertoire was the goals, and he got the big goal for us, 1-1 at that point. Remainder first half, really, I know Farai had a really good opportunity, like around the 35th minute, that was stopped on the goal line by one of the defenders. And then a few minutes after that, Aushish had a free kick that just went over the bar. Outside of that, though, first half, 1-1. I felt good at that point. The first goal within the first, couple minutes of the game, obviously a gut punch. But when we get an equalizer, especially with a guy who's as a workhorse as El Fawzi is, I felt good at that point because I felt like the game had stabilized more in our favor at that point. You mentioned the structure in the game. I thought there was certainly structure. We seemed like we were limiting the biggest opportunities. And so I felt pretty comfortable at that point. How about you?
Yeah, I did as well. Good first half, obviously. To go in at the halftime whistle, kind of all even despite the poor start was positive, and this is kind of what I expected at that point. We were going to have to find goals from somewhere. It probably wasn't going to be the prettiest offensive game. I think the offensive play overall was probably a little bit smoother than I had anticipated. Not saying there's a lot of clear-cut chances, but once again, we looked okay. Yeah. And I think that's just once again goes to some of the signings that we made in January and how those have panned out. When you look at how strong the left-hand side now is with the interplay there, when you have guys like, Ljubicic, Aushish, and Njaya, none of those guys were there in the first half of the season, and they're all making a huge impact. Good stuff.
Well, there's two big talking points to the second half, and we can talk about other stuff if you want for sure. But you mentioned January signings. One was, we'll start with the guy who did come in, Moussa Sylla, right? He was already on a yellow card. He's haven't played really well in place of Vitaly Becker. But the 51st minute, so a couple minutes into the second half, ball goes down on his side. He's trying to challenge it with the attacker from Elversberg. They collide. Looks like he gets the ball. Whistle gets blown. Referee calls a yellow card at that point, which is his second. Red card. First off, my reaction when the red card happens, like, shit, here we go, right? I just did before I even see the replay. And so I'm furious at that point, like, oh man, here we go. We have to really play like defensive, park the bus mentality, keep it 1-1. And then you see the replay and you're like, wait. I don't think that was a penalty there on Njaya. Surely they're gonna, go to VAR and check this, and they didn't. What were your thoughts when this play happened and the second yellow comes out and he's booted out of the game?
First of all, I'm not necessarily surprised that he got into trouble because there was another moment either right at the end of the first half or even at the start of the second half prior to this one, which was itself within the first 5-6 minutes, where he went fully to ground already on a yellow card, and made a brilliant tackle, but the commentators called it out and they're like, wow, he's on a yellow and he's making tackles like that. So he's clearly not stopping. And I think, unless Muslić is telling him to chill out and he's just ignoring it, it seems like Muslić is fine with that level of aggression from him. Yeah. He's willing to take it, but whatever. As you said, goes in. The initial angle, it kind of looked like a foul, but then you start seeing these replays and you're Njaya was fouled.
Yeah.
But he's literally stepped on. So you're you're kind of waiting for VAR to overturn this or for there to be some sort of acknowledgement that a poor decision was made. There was a couple of Schalke players that were around the incident that didn't like it initially. Muslić was incensed to begin with, so clearly he didn't like the call either. And Njaya was pretty confused because he kind of got up after the incident, looking for the foul, on the other player, kind of like what the hell was that kind of a thing, and then he gets it and was very confused. So just another example of just inexplicable refereeing decisions being made against Schalke that somehow aren't overturned when we have and once again, I don't know all the minutia. I could be wrong about what things are allowed to go to VAR and in what situation they're allowed to get involved in. But you would think that they'd be able to take a look at a situation like this where there's literally just phantom contact. But yeah, if anything, it's probably a card on the opposition player, not in Jaya.
Good morning to you in Germany, Benny Bo. Good to have you on the show. Yeah, it was interesting yellow card, and as Ryan said, unfortunately they can't VAR check a second yellow, which I thought maybe it's did in another league, but it won't happen until next season. So that would explain why they didn't do a VAR check. To me, it makes sense if it's a red card, it results in a red card, it should be checked automatically. Whether it's 2 yellows, straight red, whatever, it should be checked by VAR because it's an important part of the game, and it's. For us, we've seen this time and time again where a bad play that could shape the promotion race gets called, and then we had it here with that red card or second yellow card call, and that very well could have big time put a change in the promotion race. And how have we fared when we go down to 10 men? Usually pretty poor. Some teams are better when they're down a man. We are certainly not one of those teams. Historically, when we go down 10 men, we at least one goal scored against us, and it's just like everything is one-sided on the pitch. So I wasn't too optimistic that this was going to end out favorably in our side. Again, if we can park the bus or something and figure it out, great. But I wasn't too optimistic at that point. Well, luckily for us, whatever Muslic has instilled in his team, maybe he prepared for a red card because you mentioned. Muslic maybe allowing Ndai to play rough and tumble. We've seen, A Synchronizer has mentioned it numerous times where Muslic's style, not just this year, but in the past, his previous team, Cercle Bruges with Plymouth Argyle, he wants his guys to be aggressive. He lets them play aggressive, let them get a yellow card, and then usually swaps them out. So maybe Muslic is thinking, hey, give me a few minutes in the second half, and then eventually I'll sub you out and put on, Vitaly Becker or someone like that. And unfortunately for him, 6 minutes in the second half, second yellow comes, whether you like it or not, and he's out of the game. So here we go. It's down to 10 men. Looks like all doom and gloom, but Schalke, minutes after the red card, they find a way to counterattack, get a wide open play, and here they come down the pitch. Ball finds its way into box. Moussa Sylla, a guy who has barely scored this season, it seems like maybe 6 goals a season, scores with 10 men, Jack. I was probably just as shocked as anybody else that 1, we scored, and 2, that Moussa Sylla scored.
This was, you got to feel for the Elversberg supporters a little bit. They go up in the 4th minute against league leaders at home. Even though they equalized, they end up going up a man, and now they're thinking, surely, this is it. And then to concede within 90 seconds or something like that, or whatever it was, is pretty incredible. Honestly, though, the more I watch this,
it's a very shocking play.
Yes. The more I watch this, the more I just feel like Elversberg just was they were not running.
No.
They had just gone up a man. They thought they were safe, and there were multiple players that were not tracking back at the pace that they could have been. This was not the same situation as the break that Elversberg scored on in the 4th minute, where at the beginning of that break, there's multiple people that are entirely behind our back line. Yep. Lubicic had to run by a couple people that just decided not to track him before he gets into that space. And it's a great ball by Ayoshish kind of curling all the way up to the top. But then even after that point, there's 2 center backs that Moussa Sylla is behind and that he has to get in front of. And neither of them put in the effort to fully track him. And he sprints, and Lubicic picks out a good pass. And it's a great, just a little glancing touch by Sylla. If you watch, I forget who 19 is for Elversberg. If you watch him, he misses being able to intercept Sylla's glancing touch by the smallest of margins, and there's multiple points where he could have been taking an extra step. it's just bad defending by Elversberg, I feel like. But hey, great job from Schalke to not have the heads drop, for being aggressive, for kind of picking out that aggressive of a pass and on a run immediately after going down a man. And what a moment for Moussa Sylla, what we talked about, thought he was going to get sold mid-season after a horrible start. Now Džeko's injured, not available, and he comes up with a winning goal on the road. With promotion and potentially title implications as well. So great moment from him. You'd love to see Muslic and people embracing him after the match and everything. Really cool.
Yeah, it was awesome to see. And as Ryan said, Ryan's the same way as me. Thought the game was over when it was red carded for us, and that Elversberg was going to win. Yeah, it it's one of those things. Sometimes you need lady luck on your side, and when we've had the chip stacked against us many times this season, and the team just seems to one of the big things that Muslić has instilled is not dropping their heads and making them continue to play no matter the situation. Schalke, over the past 10 years, really anytime a goal or something bad happened against them, drop their heads and wouldn't play any better. This team it doesn't do that, right? We go down to 10 men where we should probably put our heads down, especially after a red card that really wasn't a red card, and then we come immediately and score a goal. Elversberg were shocked. I think a lot of people were shocked. I was certainly shocked. Ryan seemed like he was shocked. You were shocked. So obviously it's a wonderful thing, and we had to hold on for dear life in the second half, and we got to see cameos from Gantenbein, Vitali Becker, Bachmann, but ultimately we hang on. Massive 3 points bumps us back over the top of Paderborn at the time. Paderborn had won earlier, another shootout against Magdeburg, 4-3. Bilbia freaking 4 goals in that game. But we get back to top spot of the league. We got a 5-point cushion between us and third place team, which is Elversberg and Darmstadt. So, yeah, wow. Anything else to that second half jump out to you? Thoughts on Becker coming back and Gantenbein and Bachmann's insertion?
I just wanted to shout out Muslić. I don't think he was the most anonymous of games from him because we talked about sometimes he kind of floats the game. I thought he was much more involved throughout in this one, but just another example of sometimes all it takes is for that guy to just be involved with one pass or something and he can make the difference. So glad to see that over time. I think that signing's kind of borne out too. I know he had a kind of a rough start and I was a little bit critical of him after being excited, but I think overall he's been productive and helping things out. So yeah, and then good to see Becker getting back in. He was kind of one of the stories of the first half of our season in terms of really exciting talent that wasn't just Schalke was always excited when we bring you through the ranks, but also somebody that we thought was legitimately good in one of the brighter spots in our squad. So yeah, to be as attached to Njaye as I think I am at this moment is, I think, a commendation to him for the impact he's made in the short period of time that he's been here. I think Njaye is a little bit better, maybe kind of in combination a little bit. And Becker's a little bit more kind of up and down verticality and playing across and sort of that stuff. But yeah, nice to see that Becker was back. Couldn't ask for better timing, obviously, because we're going to need him next match now if Njaye is suspended or whatever. So, but good stuff there.
No, definitely good. And a lot of people I heard, so I saw Med Hunter in the chat say his man of the match is El Fauzi. I'm not going to fight you. You say that. Obviously, he gets a nice goal there. Moussa Sylla gets his goal. Karius, did his parts, and Korchai had, I think, a strong game in this one as well. Felipe Sanchez, I mentioned Becker as well. So it was a good overall team. I think Gomes is probably the weakest link of the group, but overall, not having.
Karius definitely made a couple big saves down the stretch for sure. They had some chances later, so yeah,
he did. So I mean, the fact that we didn't have our two best players on the pitch, it was an excellent result, 2-1, and looking at the table. So ever see where we're at, top of table still, which is crazy to me. Hanover are 5 points behind us, and they're in third place. So we're at 58. Paderborn's 57 with a nice little cushion. This is the first time I've seen a cushion in this Liga in years. It seems like there's always been a couple points. But then Hanover 53, Elversberg 52, Darmstadt 50, and then that's all we need to talk about. But yeah, it was a good weekend from that result. It was almost a weekend that it wasn't, though, Jack, because well, before I get into any talking points, anything else from the game that stood out to you?
No, you can transition. Go for it.
Fair enough, then. Well, like I said, I was going to say it was almost the game or the weekend that wasn't, and that's because last weekend you just talked about at the beginning of the podcast how we didn't get to watch the game. Well, at least no one in the States could watch the game because ESPN messed something up. We don't know what it was. They don't know what it was. We had, several people had asked them and they gave millions of answers that none of them were right. So we didn't have a podcast last week. So instead I came on and did a video and did a rant about ESPN and how embarrassing it is for DFB to be, a big market like the U.S. market, and you can't have a single game. It's not just a Schalke game. No Zweite games, right? So I had my take on the whole ESPN debacle and not having games last week. Thankfully, Friday they fixed their stuff, but I want to get your take on it. Like, what were your thoughts when you heard about this? Because it's not the first time ESPN or even Fox. I mentioned this. Fox also did this in the past. That after an international break in the second half of the season, then all of a sudden, oh, I can't find a stream because they messed something. They can cross the wires. What were your thoughts on the whole ESPN situation?
Yeah, so I didn't watch that game live either, and I sat down later to try to rewatch it a few hours later, and I couldn't find it. And then I'm like, what is going on? Like all these games have been available this year, and then I just kind of went on with my life when I didn't see it. So I didn't get into sort of all like the excuses that like Ryan in the chat's talking about, what you had mentioned in the rant last week. But I mean, look, it's there's a lot of different reasons why somebody might be subscribing to like ESPN Plus or whatever, and there's a lot of different sports and leagues and everything that you get access to. And I'm not suggesting that people are like owed a refund or anything based on like one glitch like this, but fundamentally, like we are paying for this product, many of us, because we want to watch this thing, and this thing is something that is advertised as being available if you purchase this subscription. So like when it's not available, I feel like ESPN as a company should like take that a little bit more seriously and like at least like apologize or something, instead of just being like, oh yeah, it's Sky's fault or it's whoever's fault, or like, oh, it's technical issues. Like it's not good enough fundamentally. And I know it's just like one game. You could say like whatever, it's not a big deal, but like it's just yeah, and it's just frustrating. Like people are paying money to watch this. You should find a way to make sure it's available. Shouldn't be that hard in 2026. You supposedly have the rights to it. I don't know why you would have the rights to all the games except for one. One match day weekend is just blacked out suddenly. Like they fell into the studio behind me for some reason. Like ESPN just threw all the games into the jack abyss. Like that's not a thing. So like, yeah, I don't know. It's just they don't care. And it's because like, what are we gonna do about it? Nothing. Just bitch online for a bit, and that's what we're doing, and nothing's gonna happen. So yeah, anyway, whatever. It's not a big deal. Not the end of the world ultimately, but annoying.
I didn't realize how dark your background was, but man, it is dark. It is the abyss back there. Right. So it's still so weird that Dritte Liga matches were shown. So that's the thing. It's one thing to say they're having technical issues with the feed, the mother feed back in Germany, but you had the Bundesliga working fine and the Dritte Liga was working fine. So, which is the Zweite Liga. I think, Ryan's point is maybe they forgot to turn on the switch that says, Zweite Liga, plug that little thing that says Zweite Liga, because they had every other league in the world. And when you have two other leagues in Germany being streamed, but you can't get that middle league, that's a ESPN issue. It's not a world feed issue. And the Zone and everybody else around the world was able to have that stream. So, yeah, it's frustrating. And we were getting no answers from ESPN. And like I said, luckily, whether it's Joseph or Ryan, whoever in the chat, whoever was, saying their ill will towards ESPN Friday, luckily they had figured it out and got all the games back on the schedule. And the only thing I wish in those situations, when they happen again, because it will happen again, is find some way to just put the game on demand after the fact so we can watch it after the fact. I get it. We can't watch it live, but what the heck, man? Oh, anyway, that's neither here nor there, because that's over and we've got the game now, and hopefully the rest of the games are going to be televised here. But we just had a massive win, a massive statement against a direct rival in Elversberg. It seems like, you look at the game, or back when Džeko, if he was there, he would be like the primary guy, the primary point guy. You kind of pivot everything around him and kind of build towards that. But like when he's not there, Moussa Sylla has to kind of had to step up. And I thought he had a pretty decent game. He was trying to do little things to get in the game, even though if he wasn't necessarily the guy getting the ball all the time. He was hustling around a lot. It looked like he was really doing his job. And obviously with the midfield,
he was trying to get vertical a lot.
Yes.
I thought he was very aggressively going into space and trying to,
And also the midfield stepped up without Karaman there, because somebody had to play that creative role. Obviously, El Fauzi did a big job there, but a lot of guys did. Lubicic, like you mentioned, and Gomes and him were kind of interchanging their positions a lot to kind of confuse that defense. Whether it worked or not is a different story. But thoughts on, I guess, how Sylla's role, how he looked in this game, as well as maybe guys like Aušić and Lubicic, and how they picked up for the captain not being there in this statement win.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was decent. I didn't think I wasn't watching the game being like, wow, Sylla's completely anonymous or Sylla's really frustrating me or
Yeah,
whatever. Like, I mean, look, he needs service like any striker does, and he's somebody who can't kind of like create it or get it as easy as other people. Džeko's a huge target. He can, hold a defender off and just play it to his feet in a way that's not as easy for Sylla all the time because stuff like that. But yeah, I thought Sylla was industrious and
yeah,
he kept being that throughout the match, and then it paid off, like we said, in the second half, where he, made that full field sprint and the ball came to him at the end and he put it away. So, like,
yeah,
yeah, I just think it's, if anything else, it's just like great mentality from him. Like I said, like, I mean, maybe things internally are better than like maybe what we'd anticipate or whatever. It certainly seemed like, the whole team embraced him and he's like,
yeah,
happy or whatever else. But like, for someone to like go from being a huge part of the team to having a disastrous kind of start to the season, thinking you're on your way out, being sold by
yeah.
the new manager, having to sit on the bench watching, kind of like a generational kind of like talent like Edin Džeko kind of like banging goals at 40 or whatever. Like, and you're like, wow, I got benched by like a 40-year-old. Like
He's already
that's
scored more goals than me in a couple games.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's not the easiest thing as a striker, those people can kind of be head cases to begin with to deal with. But for him to
Yeah,
kind of like slot in these situations and stay mentally strong and push through and come up with a big moment, I think is awesome. So I was happy for him.
yeah. I think undoubtedly he had to feel the weight of not having Džeko or Karaman there. That he knew that he had to be the guy who kind of had to step up some way somehow. And so you saw that. I mean, that could easily break a striker, especially someone who was put in a precarious situation like he was, where he was the main guy. Then he's not the main guy anymore, or almost out the door, like you said. So it looked like he really was like, I'm going to put my best foot forward, give everything I have for this team. So, I look good, but also know it'll set him up better in the long run, wherever he may land next year with this team or another team. But he, like I said, hustling, getting vertical, make himself available, backtracking to get the ball back when the ball gets turned over. I thought he had a good performance. And obviously, guys, Lubicic and Aushish and these guys are trying to do well. I think really, if you look at overall in the game, who probably stepped up the most, and it's not really stepping up because this guy does it every week. It's El Fauzi. This guy continues grinds. He's ran probably one of the most kilometers this season for anybody in this, and I think all of Germany, not just despite the Liga. And he found a way, like I said, link up play, kind of really get behind other players and send up passes and does it in an industrious play or really something pulled out of his socks and does that over the head kick that maybe a Karaman would do or something like that, or a Džeko and gets a goal. And so I think, having guys like him and the others step up with just little things. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Just make it a team effort, which they did. And I think it was it grinded out a statement win. That's all I can say. It's a statement win with your two best players.
For sure. But I think part of it too, though, as we mentioned earlier, is that this is a different situation than Sylla was in the first half of the season because it's a different squad around him in terms of what the offensive capability is outside the striker position. Like he was kind of on an island earlier on, and it was kind of Karaman running the show and trying to do stuff with very little help, and he just couldn't find a way to kind of get involved with that. I think we're just more competent overall, and there's more people involved. So there's less pressure on him to kind of advance the ball and make something happen in the final third. I think he still probably doesn't get open or on it as much as he probably should at the moment this season for whatever reason in the system that Muslic has. But I think his appearances in the second half so far and whatever appearances he have going forward, they're fundamentally going to be a little bit different because he just has better quality and more support around him.
I think that's the thing too that kind of stood out for me in this game is the competency. It's like I still shake my head. First half of the season we had pretty much a whole different attacking team in there, and we brought in a bunch of guys, and a lot of them are starting now in the second half. And this team just offensively looks like a different team compared to the first half of the season. We look decent going forward, and we're getting opportunities. And it feels like we scored a majority of our goals in the second half of the season. Honestly, I mean, just the way this team is built right now, and the way they're playing. So. It's really, really great to see there. So that's the good. I guess the bad, at least was bad at the time. Ndaye with his 2 yellow cards, gets a red card, then suspended for the game against Münster. Potentially. Obviously, everything we saw in the replay during the game, it wasn't a foul, the second one at least. And you knew Schalke was going to appeal this as they did with the Džeko 2-game suspension, and they won that one. There's only 1-game suspension. So this one again, Schalke and Muslic, everybody else is saying like, this is not a red card. This is not a yellow card. This is a foul against Moussa and Daye. It wasn't a foul by him. And lo and behold, update: Schalke win a appeal for the second time this season, and Daye's suspension gets wiped away. Schalke win it. It was pretty clear this time. I think it's much more clear than the Džeko one. Even the Džeko one was, unintentional high boot. This one he got stepped on. I mean, studs on his ankles, Jack. I didn't see what Manuel Grefa said on the play, but the fact that DFB finally walked us back and admitted their mistakes, I'm happy with that, because not that it would have hurt us tremendously because Becker's back, but I think Ndiaye has deserved the play time. He's done well, and I thought it could have really cost us that game had we, had Sylla not stepped up in that play.
Yeah, I'm glad that we got both these kind of decided in our favor, which like we said, we feel is rare. It's still frustrating these things are happening in the first place because these are just objectively bad calls. And like chat pointed out that apparently you can't review that, which hopefully we said is being instituted or changed next season or whatever. But like, yeah, I feel like I'm not the biggest VAR guy, but I feel like if you have VAR, like you should have VAR for situations like this as well, where like you can clearly on replay, determine that a decision that's been made incorrectly, which can have an impact on the outcome of the game. As you mentioned, fortunately it didn't, but it certainly could have. And then obviously if we're losing him through suspension, that's kind of like a double jeopardy sort of situation almost, sort of. So glad it's overturned and glad we have him back.
Yeah, because had the worst case scenario happened and we lose that game because of that call, we're sitting tied with Elversberg on 55 points and right behind Paderborn, who are leading the table. So it's funny how it was a 6-point swing essentially with that call. Luckily, we mustered down and got the result we needed. So top of the table, top 5 is very much alive and going. There is a little bit of gap between first, second, and then between third and fourth and below. 5 finals to go. We already talked about before how Schalke has on paper the easiest of run-ins. We also know that Schalke doesn't play the best against the lower league table. They play fantastic against the top teams, and the lower teams are not so much. But looking at these run-ins here, looking at next week, these games, huge games coming up. Let me pull up the schedule here. We got fixtures. That's not what I want to do. Well, let's go with my team then, because I can't clearly do this myself. All right. So next 2 games. Preston Münster coming up Sunday, early game, followed by Paderborn a week later. Obviously, this is going to be the top spiel, 1 versus 2. Presently, they're 1 versus 2. Less than actually nothing's really can change between then and now. That game, there's going to be 1 and 2. But I feel that this Preston Münster game could be a trap game. Do you have a feeling that it could be a trap game because you have 2 really good opponents on either side of this? Hopefully Schalke's not looking ahead to Paderborn.
Yeah, look, this is the bottom team in the league.
Yep.
There is no reason we should not win this game. Like, we need it, gotta have it, no excuses. Yep. And the positive is that Paderborn is playing Hanover. So they do not have an easy encounter, and we supposedly do. Yeah. I hope we're not here this time next week talking about how all these results did not go in our favor. But I think there's actually a lot of pressure on this Münster game. Hopefully the team doesn't feel that way, but as a fan, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on this Münster game. It's very possible that even if we win this game, we're going into the Paderborn game with a 1-point lead, and it's going to be an incredibly tense and nervy affair. Like, even if we win this game against Münster, right? If we draw or lose and somehow we are behind Paderborn, then that Paderborn game becomes even more of a must-win than it already is. There's all this kind of more pressure. So, as much as you could say, it's about a trap game because we're hoping we're not paying attention, I feel like Schalke needs to be locked in on this Münster game, while simultaneously hoping that Hanover does us a favor and at least gets a draw or something along those lines. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I'm going to be nervous for no reason. It's first versus last, but I'm going to be nervous.
Yeah, and Ryan said, we either lost or drew them. I think we drew them in the first half of the season. let me see, pull up the fixture. This is all Paderborn.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, Paderborn's playing Hanover. It's 2 versus 3 at that point. You would hope it's a draw at least in that game. So whatever happens in our game, either we extend the lead or it keeps it copacetic. But Paderborn is hot right now. Milbia is ridiculous. 4 goals in the last game. Yes, it's Magdeburg, but he still scored 4 goals in that game. And Münster are going to be a difficult opponent. They are surely relegated, so maybe that'll play into our favor. But you can't rely on that. You have like you said, they have to treat this like a final. I think Muslic is going to have them locked in to not overlook this because this means a lot, and I think it makes the world a hell of a lot more difficult if you somehow lose or draw that game with Paderborn winning. And like I said, they jump us in the table, and then it is a must win because Hanover is nipping on the heels, and so is Elversberg and possibly Darmstadt. So it gets a little crazy there. So Paderborn, they have a difficult next 2 games, right? Hanover and then us, right? But you look at the remaining of the table here. Where is it? There we go. All right. Looking at Hanover. Hanover, they obviously have Paderborn next, and then they got Karlsruhe. So Karlsruhe can be tricky. We just played them and got a result barely, but it's pretty tight there. And then if you want to look further in the table, Elversberg, who do they got next? Next, they got Karlsruhe and then Darmstadt. So Darmstadt's big there. And if you want to go look at Darmstadt, because they're the next one on the table, that is not what I wanted. Here we go. Let's try this again. One more time. Darmstadt, their next 2 games are Greuther Fürth and then obviously Elversberg. So the ones we're going to focus for right now is just the Elversberg and, Paderborn and Hanover. Those 2 obviously play each other next week, and we just have to focus on Münster. Can't really look ahead too much past that because, they're not necessarily hard teams in terms of placing the table, but again, we struggle with teams. We play the teams levels, whether it's good or bad. So I like to take care of business this week coming up and have that top schmeal, and hopefully it'd be nice if both these teams had a gap going into next week where we don't have to really worry about it. But I doubt that's the low. We don't live in that world as Schalke fans, right? It's never going to be easy. So it's going to come down to the last day. So let's see how this pans out, but hopefully Muslic has got the guys ready. Think of it as a final, like you said, because otherwise it's foolish to think you can't give Münster any kind of taste of they're going to have a victory, get a result in this game. So,
yeah, agreed. And to address the Ryan in the chat, I mean, like, yeah, obviously, like the end goal is promotion. That's all that we really care about.
Yep.
But like, look, if we're in a position to win a title, I want to win the title. Don't care if it's second division title, silverware. Yeah. Can't take it for granted. Don't know how often it's going to come around. It was really fun winning the title when we got promoted last time, and would love to win it this time as well. So I would love a draw between Paderborn and Hanover.
I would too.
Keep either of them from getting 3 points against in this upcoming one. But yeah, doesn't matter if we get promoted in second place. I'll take that all day for sure.
I will absolutely take that. And if. Yeah. I can't say much more than that. So everything else is speculative at this point. So, all right, before we get on out of here, a couple real quick team news bits, and then we'll get on out of here. First, as we do, Kicker 11, El Fauzi makes Kicker 11 Team of the Week. Obviously, with his goal and his contributions in the game, he gets in there. So good to have him in there. 3rd time this season he's made the Kicker 11. Ndiaye suspension, obviously overturned, as we mentioned. And lastly, Moussa Sylla says, the whole team, the coaches, the staff, everyone believes in me. They keep me calm, and I do my job on the pitch. So he's obviously feeling the love from the team. You've seen all the pictures after the game. They feel like they're a team. And that's important this time of the season when things get rough, things go against you like they did in this game. Stick together and they get a result. Gemeinsam, right? So huge result. Big game against Münster coming up. Let's hope we're rocking and rolling, and we get to have a little more smiles on our face next week. But many days away before that. So, anything else, Jack? Before we get out of here?
No, that's all from me.
All right. Joseph says 5 finals to go on the Münster. That's right, on the Münster. All right, Jack. Where can our followers find you on social media?
At JMMangan, JMMangan on X/Twitter.
You can follow me at R_KHARMAN on Twitter, or follow us, more importantly, at SchalkeMerica all across social media. Make sure you share, subscribe, and like our videos. We truly appreciate that. And thanks everyone in the chat tonight joining us for the podcast, and for those listening in on your earbuds. So 5 finals to go. Next one against Münster coming up. I believe it's a home game, but don't hold my word there. All right, for Jack and myself, we'll catch you guys here in about 7 days time. Until then, Glück auf.